Welcome, Gateway. Welcome, our guests. I'm Rosalie Joseph. I'm the co-president of the Tenants Association. We have a lot to get to tonight and through tonight, but before I turn it over, I just want to take a moment and say, if you're not a member of the Tenants Association, please join. It's $25 for a year for a household. And why? Because there's strength in numbers, that our membership is louder when we have more membership. So we need your loud voices to get stuff done. So if you are, if you're able, please join it. You can just go to our website. Anna will give you those instructions a little later. And by the way, if there are issues that you're concerned with or you want to do more, want to be more involved with your community, consider joining the board. If you haven't done your bio already, Jeff is going to go through what you could do tonight. If you decide, you know what, I'd like to join the board. I think I want to be part of not only the fight, but the solution. So we invite anybody who's interested. Again, that we're going to do that a little bit later. And we just hope you join us. So I'm going to turn it over to co-president Shannon McHugh. Shannon?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Like I said, we have a really good turnout, and I really hope we have a nice discussion tonight and be interesting and, keep everyone in the loop as to what's going on. But I'd like to introduce the board members to you. First, well, you met Rosalie Josephs, and I, Shannon McHugh, we're co-presidents. And then the next, I'd like to introduce our first vice president, which is Robin Forrest, if Robin can wave. And if she wants, did you want to? No? Good. Okay.
Okay.
I didn't know she wanted to say anything. Okay.
Thank you. I'll speak later.
Okay, great. Yeah. And then we have second vice president, Vittoria Ferriello. If you want to wave, Vittoria, and if you want to say anything.
Welcome, everyone.
Then we have our secretary, Jeff Galloway.
Hello, everybody.
Our assistant secretary, Chris Green.
Hi, everybody. It's awesome seeing such a great turnout today.
Our treasurer, Kylene Weesey. We have our assistant treasurer, Anna Bain, who's also our MC tonight, if you will, or our main host.
Hi.
Yeah. And then our board members, we have Sarah Cassell. If Sarah wants to, there she is, she waved. Audrey Comiskey.
Hello.
We have Larry Emmerich. Okay. Pat Gray.
Hi, welcome.
Howard Grossman.
Hi there, thanks for coming.
And Sally Guttmacher.
Hi, glad everybody came. It's great.
And now that I've introduced the board, I am going to hand it back over to Anna. She's going to give you some details about how we intend to run this Zoom tonight. And thank you, everyone, again.
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, so just for everybody's benefit, we are using the chat function. You are welcome to ask questions. I don't know if we'll have time to get to all the questions, but we have set aside time at the end of the meeting for Q&A. So we're taking note of those and we'll try to address them. If we don't get to your question during the meeting, we're going to address the questions via email and on our website after the meeting. Probably not later tonight, but later this week or next week. If you don't know how to use the chat, you're also welcome to raise your hand. There's a little react button down at the bottom. You can raise your hand, but we do want to ask that you save questions for the end for the Q&A, or just pop them in the chat for us to see. And the only other thing is just be conscientious of your mute and unmute. If anyone is overly noisy, we might mute you. And if you need to come off mute, then use your mute function. Did I miss anything, Rosalie?
The website.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So yes, if you haven't seen our website, we've been updating it a lot lately. We sent out a couple of newsletters. We've posted a treasury report, and I think probably most relevant to everyone here is the frequently asked questions page. So we do have an FAQ page. It doesn't have every question answered, but it has the ones we get most often year over year. And we also welcome you to post questions there. There's a link to a survey. You can send in your questions anytime after this meeting. And if we get enough of them, we'll post that answer to the FAQ as well. Thank you. Chris just put the links in the chat. So if you're not familiar, you can see our FAQ page.
And you could also pay your dues online on our webpage. Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn this over to Robin, who's going to welcome our guests tonight.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see everybody. One of the things that we do at our annual meeting is invite our elected officials to come and join us and talk to us about what they're doing. And hopefully they'll each allow a question or two, time permitting. Is Dan Goldman here yet? Okay. I know that Charles Fall is here. And Charles, if you're ready, we'd love to hear from you. Charles is our current assembly member. He represents the 61st New York State Assembly District. He's been serving in the Assembly since 2019, which includes the North Shore of Staten Island, as well as Lower Manhattan, and I think a bit of Brooklyn. Charles serves as the chair of the Subcommittee on Consumer Fraud Protection and is a member of multiple committees, including the Committee on Corporations, Authorities, and Commissions, which is very important if you live in Battery Park City. So with that, Charles, we'd love to hear from you. I think you're muted.
You're unmuted on our side, Charles, but we still cannot hear you.
Oh, there's nothing like technical glitches.
Okay, that's fine. We can come
Did
back.
he go out and come back? Does that ever help?
Sometimes if you click on the microphone, and you can choose a different microphone. I know I've had
How
that.
about now?
Oh,
Yes,
perfect.
awesome.
A technical
These
genius.
government
Thank you.
computers, you know, it's like they
Thank you. Great.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Robin. Thank you for having me all. I just want to quickly just really thank the association for all their efforts, the co-presidents, Rosalie, Sharon, for your leadership, the first and second vice president, Robin and Victoria, the entire executive board. You know, it's very important for the membership to know that you do have a very active board and leadership. You know, I hear from them often. They care truly about the community. And so I just want to let that be known and let them know I appreciate them and all their advocacy. As mentioned, I am Assemblyman Charles Fall, and I represent the 61st District. And I'm so honored to represent the neighborhood up in Albany. We're actually in Albany right now. This is the week that we're supposed to be back in the district. But because we do not have a state budget, we have to be here, and so we could get that done. And you know, there is some progress that is being made, but you know, hopefully within the next week or two, we will have a budget that is reflective of you know what New Yorkers truly need. And it's important that we get this done sooner than later. With all the cuts that we're facing from Washington, so important that the state has its ducks in a row and we get past this point. So. You know, that being said, I'm going to continue to fight hard for our community, and hopefully we'll have some strong positive results for the neighborhood. So I want to just say too, as far as like the resiliency project that's going on the Northwest and the South section of the Battery Park City, you know, many of you may have already started to see some of the current test pile work that's being done near the South End Avenue in Third Place. And of course, that's there to support the long-term flood protection efforts. So if there's ever any concerns and folks that feel like they're not being heard from the authority, feel free, of course, to reach out to the leadership here at the association or reach out to my office. You know, we always want to be helpful. So I want to remind people that, you know, as an elected official, we work for you, we work for the public. So if there's anything we could be, you know, anything we could do to be helpful on that end, please let us know. as far as the security on Battery Park City, earlier this year we met with the authority, the Battery Park City Authority, and Allied Security to address the public safety concerns and the homelessness that has been a concern in the area. And we echoed the community sentiments, the concerns that folks had there. And recently the authority, they did put out a security contract to bid, and they selected Allied for another, I think, few years. I wasn't too thrilled about it. I suggested that they go in a different direction, but they cited the cost as the rationale why they went in this direction. And so if there is anything, again, you see from a security perspective, please let us know, because we want to make sure we echo the concerns that you're seeing on an everyday basis. And don't ever feel like you're annoying us when you reach out, whether it's the littlest thing. We keep track of it, and we also share with them that these are issues that need to be addressed. Lastly, the issues related to the rent stabilization that many folks are facing at Gateway. I met with your leadership a few months ago, Victoria, Chris, and a few others, and they briefed me on what the concerns were that folks had. Just want to make it very clear that I personally fully support extending rent stabilization beyond current expiration dates and expanding eligibility to include more residents so that every Gateway household has the stability and protection it deserves. And, we're of course going to continue to explore options on the table, so we can, just have a solid plan in the future. So, with that being said, those are some of the points. Oh, the last point I wanted to make: on May 7th, if you have like a regular driver's license, that regular driver's license, if it has not for federal purposes on the top right of your driver's license, that will not be good on domestic flights and to enter federal buildings. So we are encouraging folks to get their real ID. You can do that through the DMV, state DMV website. Go to the local DMV office and get your real ID. And pretty much what that real ID does, you'll have a star at the top right of your driver's license, and you could use that to board domestic flights and also enter federal buildings. So if you have an ID that has not for federal purpose, that will not be able to work boarding flights and entering federal buildings starting May 7th. Happy to take any questions if, there are any.
Charles, do you have a moment for a question or two?
Yes, no, I'm
are there any people who would like to ask Assemblymember Fall a question now?
Diane, do you want to go?
Diane. Yeah.
Hi, thanks. You mentioned the May 7th date for the real ID.
Yeah.
I happen to have gotten an enhanced driver's license. It says enhanced on it. I'm getting mixed messages about whether or not that works.
Yep, you'll be good to go. That's just as good. With the enhanced driver's license, you have the ability of using that to cross the border on domestic flights as well, and U.S. Mexico, and also the Canadian border. So that's even better than the real ID.
Okay.
It's a little bit more expensive, but we're encouraging the real ID. It is cheaper, but you could do the bare minimum with that.
Okay, great. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Assemblymember, would you mind, we've been asked for your email address. We have it, but for anybody on the call, would you provide it?
Absolutely. Yes. So
I dropped it in chat if anybody needs it too, because I don't know if you have chat privileges to message everyone.
Yes. Thanks for saying. I know my chief of staff Fatim Shabani that's on. So if we could also add his email as well, that'd be great. And yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. The one thing I also didn't mention, we send out a weekly newsletter. You may sometimes get things in a mailbox from me that gives you a summary of what's going on during or on a quarterly basis. But every week we do send out an email of some of the work that we're doing here in Albany and in the district, and that there's also information there that's resourceful. So you could also sign up for that through the website, or just reach out to your leadership here at the board, and they could also share with you what we're doing.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're happy to see you.
All right, likewise.
Getting that budget done, and we'll look forward to having you back in New York full time.
Look, Robin, the good news is I still have my hairline. The moment I lose my hairline, that means, it's not going so well, but
I
thank you very
see.
much.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank
All
you
right.
for coming and joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Rosalie?
I'm not sure that is any of our other electeds, or Raju here? Yet? Congressman Goldman or Chris
No, I
Martin?
guess not, Bill.
Not yet. All right. We're going to jump then and we'll pull, Jeff, are you and Victoria ready for updates?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And so guys, this is Jeff Galloway and Victoria, and they'll fill you in on some of the things we want to update you on.
Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen to see if it works. Okay, can you see that slide?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to speak about is the resiliency project, and basically the short message there is that we have a meeting scheduled on May 29th for all Gateway residents to attend. It'll be a Zoom meeting somewhat similar to this. And it will be hosted by us and the Battery Park City Authority, where quite a bit of detail will be gone into in terms of what the project will consist of as it relates to Gateway. I'll just give you a brief summary right now. Hopefully it will entice you to attend the meeting on May 29th. Because there's been a lot of stories in the news about the various projects going on downtown for coastal resiliency, and it's confusing to understand what's going forward, what's not going forward, which ones have budgetary problems with the federal funds and which ones don't. Well, I won't get into all the others. This slide here simply shows how Battery Park City fits into the other projects. But the one thing that I do want to say is that the Battery Park City projects are going forward. And as I think all of you know, down in Wagner Park, the Southern project is in process now. And what's about to start is the Northern project. And this slide shows, just in sort of schematic form, where the flood barrier will be located. And the thing that's most important for us Gateway residents to know is that the flood barrier will be right next to us. Along with lots of other places, but it will definitely be right next to us. And here's a little shot of where it will go through the marina. The red line is the flood barrier. And Gateway's on the left, and you can see that the barrier will be right along the Gateway privacy wall. And in fact, it will basically be replacing the privacy wall. And as you go around towards the Esplanade, it will replace the privacy wall that's currently located there as well. Once it's done, it will look nice, and it won't look a whole lot different from what's out there right now. There will be some differences, and the May 29th meeting will be able to describe what those differences will be and so forth. But what I wanted to focus on here is getting from here to there, which is the construction that's going to be necessary to accomplish these flood protections. And this slide shows, it's a schematic. This is the 400 building on the left, and the water on the 400 building on the right, and the water on the left. And that dark area is the Esplanade in front of the 400 building. All of it needs to be replaced. As you can see, the 400 building is actually slightly out over the water. And all of the Esplanade there is over the water as well. It's basically a dock or a set of piers. That's going to be replaced. So that's a lot of work that's going to be going on. When's this going to happen? The slides that I've been showing you are from Battery Park City Authority, and they are dated from late last year. Once again, on May 29th, we'll have an update on the schedule as well as various other aspects of the project. But at least as of late last year, the plan was to start construction near Gateway at the end of this year, towards the end of this year. And it's going to be a big project. The construction work at the marina will take almost 5 years, 56 months. The construction on the Esplanade between Gateway and the water will take a little bit more than 3 years, 39 months. So I urge all of you to come to the May 29th meeting so that you can find out the specifics and what mitigation measures will be put in place. The Battery Park City Authority has committed to mitigate as much as possible, but let's face it, there's going to be a construction project outside our building, and so there's going to be some level of disruption that's going to be unavoidable. During our Q&A section, I'll be able to answer more questions if people have it. So that's my update on the resiliency project. Let me unshare this. Okay, here we go. Let me get back to my notes on my next subject. The next subject I wanted to address just briefly is the QRS agreement. You heard Charles Fall mention that we met with his office a couple of months ago with the objective of extending rent stabilization beyond 2030 for those who are currently covered, as well as to expand its coverage, hopefully to cover all residents of Gateway. We are hard at work on that process. The agreement doesn't expire until 2030, and it may take all the time between now and then to get it extended and expanded. But Charles Fall has been very supportive. Senator Kavanaugh has been supportive. Dan Goldman's been supportive. Chris Marte has been supportive. We have a lot of support from our elected officials, and we've heard encouraging words from the authority, but no guarantees at this point. So we are continuing to work on this. I think everybody who's covered by the agreement understands its terms. It's, where you have a right to renewal at modest rent increases, but we still get questions from tenants that are covered. And I just wanted to address a couple of those questions briefly. One of the questions is basically, can I renew on the online portal? And the answer to that question is basically yes, but you need to be careful. One of the provisions of the agreement is that our renewal lease cannot have any material change in the terms compared to the expiring lease. And as we all know, when we look at our renewal packages, there are riders associated, lease riders associated with the renewal package. So you need to review those riders carefully to make sure they're the same ones that were in your expiring lease. And if they are not, our position is that you do not have to sign them. And we've got confirmation from LEFRAC management in agreement with that if the riders are different than what has been in your expiring package, you do not need to sign them. One of the problems on the online portal, though, is that you only have the choice of signing everything or signing nothing if you're going to do your renewal purely on the portal. So what you should do, if you're a QRS tenant, or for that matter, even a market tenant, and you want to read carefully all of these riders and all the provisions of your renewal, you can download on the portal your renewal package. Everything can be printed out on your home computer. And then you can review it. And if you're a QRS tenant, you can review the riders. And if they're different from what you had in your expiring lease, you can decide whether or not you want to sign it. And whatever you do sign, you can just mail it in to the address that's indicated in the renewal communications. Let's see. We actually get questions sometimes about just where can you even find the electronic renewal, even though the electronic process has been going on for a couple of years now. It is possible to get your lease printed out for you by the management office, and some people continue to do it. But if you, in fact, want to renew online, all you need to do is go to your maintenance portal, and there's a little tab there that says lease. And if you have a renewal package being offered, if you click on that lease tab, your renewal package will be there. I think that's all I have on QRS.
Great, Jeff. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. At this point, we've been joined by our borough president, Mark Levine. whom I consider a
Hi,
very,
Robin.
where are you? Oh,
I'm
there you
right
go.
here.
Hi, Mark. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who don't know, Mark Levine is our Manhattan Borough President, and he has been in that role since 2022 after serving for 8 years at the New York City Council, which is where I met him. His background includes being a teacher in the South Bronx, teaching bilingual, I think, math and science. And he
Yes.
also founded a community bank in Northern Manhattan to help secure funding for low-income families in Manhattan. He has done a lot over his 3+ years as Manhattan Borough President, and I'm really happy to introduce him to you.
Wow, thank you so much, Robin, and
You're
great to see
welcome.
all of you here at Gateway. You know, this building or this complex is extremely important and special for Manhattan and for New York City at a time when we're all so concerned about the housing affordability crisis. Honestly, it's my top concern about the future of New York City. Here we have a building that was designed and conceived from its birth as a place where middle-class families could find a home in Lower Manhattan. And in a lot of ways, it's lived up to that dream with the assistance of the quasi-rent stabilization rules that were put in place in the 80s. I'm worried though that with the expiration coming up in 2030 and the fact that so many of the apartments are no longer covered because they've moved to market rate, that we might lose this pillar of affordability for Manhattan and for New York City. And I want you to know that I'm with you in this fight. That I think it would be a tragedy to lose so many in this community who have been here through 9/11 in some cases before, who have invested so much in the neighborhood. When I'm out and about in Lower Manhattan, at any kind of good community meeting I'm at where people are fighting for downtown, I can bet that there'll be a Gateway resident there because Gateway residents, tenants are so committed to the neighborhood. To lose you, to lose that history, to lose people who've invested so much, to me is unacceptable. So I want you to know I join you in seeking both to extend the agreement beyond 2030 and to expand it to include all the residents. And this is a governmental, not a political thing, but anyway, I'll just make a vague allusion to the fact that I may be a role in the years ahead that might put me in a good position to help you on that. And I want you to know you have my commitment on that, whatever comes next. I did hear Jeff talking about the resiliency project, and I know this is a real concern, and there's going to be some more work this summer. I will really fight to make sure that there's good community consultation on how to minimize the impact on that. I know we all understand the importance of resiliency, especially in Lower Manhattan, but at the same time, we want to minimize negative impacts on all of you. There's so much more that I'm working on that I won't go into, but I'll just mention a couple topics. I'm really deeply engaged in the fixing the broken mental health system that's impacting life downtown, because I know you experience that we have people who are living on the street and in the subways who have untreated severe mental illness. And I'm really trying to expand capacity to give people in crisis long-term inpatient treatment. And you might know that there is one single state psychiatric hospital for Manhattan. I'll do a pop quiz. Think if you know where it is. It's on the other end of the island. It's on Randall's Island. And but what you should know is that facility is mostly empty these days, 90% off its peak. And that explains partly why people are not getting treatment that you see on the street and the subways and the parks. I'm really working a lot on that to try and get that investment going back in again so that we can give better hope for people who are suffering. And I think also it will make New York City a better place for everybody. So I think I'm going to pause there. I don't know if you do Q&A. I want to acknowledge that I have a wonderful team member who's going to be on for the whole meeting, Jessie Lang. Maybe you can wave Jessie. She's on our policy team, but focused a lot on she's our housing specialist, but she's really focused on Gateway. And I want you to know you have someone in my office who really understands the technical issues there. And maybe if you haven't already, at some point, Jesse, you could put your contact into the chat so that people can follow up with someone on my team about this. Anyway,
Okay.
I'll turn it
Mark,
back to
if
you, Robin.
if you
Yes,
have,
please.
if you have time for a couple of questions.
Please, yes, absolutely.
Okay, one or two questions. If some people want to raise their hands with the raise hand function. Anyone? No question? Oh, there's one.
Larry has
Larry.
a question.
Yes, I see. Larry. Larry is a member of our board.
You're
Larry
on,
Emmett.
you're on mute, Larry.
On mute. Okay, hold on a second. Let
No,
me.
nope, now
I
you're
unmuted you. You're good.
fixed.
Hey,
Hi,
thank you.
Larry.
Hi, how you doing, Mark? And do you think you can bring warmer weather around here?
I'm gonna put some legislation in on that right away.
No, one of the things you notice if you walk down South End Avenue is there've been a number of vacancies there. You know, we used to have a pizza place. I think there was a wine and liquor store, and it's been, you know, a couple of years now. Is this what is going on? I mean, what is your office, if you have any clout in terms of bringing businesses, restaurants, anything, you know, because it's really an eyesore, and it's a disservice to the tenants here.
Yeah, so I don't know specifically what's happened, what's the backstory on those storefronts, but this is a problem all over Manhattan. It's not
Okay.
unique to Battery Park City. We've had a real decline in retail since the pandemic. And it's due to some things that are beyond our control, but some things I think we could do better on. You know, the rise of Amazon and internet commerce has made it much harder for retail. That's not really in our control. But I also have to say that we've had a real problem of retail theft, sometimes called shoplifting, which has really hurt the retail sector. And we need to do better to prevent that and to prevent recidivism in that category of theft. Also, there's things that the city needs to do to be a better partner for business. We kill some of these retail stores with regulations, and we make it so incredibly hard to open and stay open. And so I think the city can do some things to make it easier to operate. But you know what I would like to do is talk to I guess the Battery Park City Authority about this problem, and see whether in my role as borough president or the city government in general could help get those stores filled, because I agree it's definitely good for the neighborhood to have vibrant retail.
Thank you.
You got it, Larry.
We have time, I
We-
think, for
we
one
have-
more. There is
Yeah, we have one more, Malind Sharman.
Okay, please go ahead.
Hi there. Can you
Hi,
hear
Milan.
me, see me?
Yes,
Yes.
hi.
Hi. Just wanted to ask what can be done about the electric hikes. You know, a lot of the tenants have experienced some very egregious hikes in the electric bills, which we have not seen any explanation from Energy. That, at least in my case, you know, I'm out half the time and they're not able to substantiate the charges. Seems like a pretty widespread concern.
Sorry, I want to make sure I understood. You're talking about e-bike?
No, electric bills over here at Gateway.
Okay. I thought you said electric bikes.
Mark, just so you know, electricity, we're sub-metered through Gateway for
Okay.
they
I
provide
didn't actually know.
electric.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, I have to admit, I'm not familiar with this issue. I would love to help. If this is the kind of thing, how can I help on this? Is this a Con Ed issue or no? Malind?
It might be a Gateway issue with the metering to be, and the disclosure, I would think.
Okay. Well, looks, I'd be happy to help if you can tell me the best way to direct my efforts on that.
If I could just jump in on this, this is
Please.
actually one of the FAQs. I think Mark could probably help us answer the question even better. So I don't want to talk over him, but Chris is actually going to cover specifically electric bills and some of the known answers we have to those questions later in the meeting.
Okay. Well, look, I only know the big picture. Con Ed is trying to increase rates, so seeking permission to do that now, a quite substantial increase, which I am opposing. I don't know if that is what's driving your rates. Sounds like you might have a unique issue in Gateway, but
and-
I'm definitely fighting the fight citywide to prevent such a high rate. They're pushing a double-digit rate increase. I'm fighting against that. I do apologize. I'm gonna have to go in a moment because I have
No,
a very
we
busy night tonight.
understand, and Millen, you can circle back with us.
And
or
Millen, maybe,
circle
I
back
don't know
with you.
if you can connect to Jesse on my team, but we could follow up direct with you too to help, and help any way we can on this.
Rosalie, since we're on this topic, or I guess Mark, I'll let you guys finish because I know you have to jump.
Yeah, let's continue.
Okay.
Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you,
for
Gateway.
joining
Thanks,
us.
everyone.
Always a pleasure to
Thanks,
have you
Robin.
with us.
Appreciate you guys.
So
Have a great
much.
night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. At this moment, I wanted to welcome our council member, Christopher Marte. Chris was elected to be a council member for what's called the First Council District, of which Battery Park City is a part. He serves as the co-chair of the Manhattan delegation, and also serves on several council committees, including the important committees of parks, aging, landmarks, resiliency, and waterfronts. Chris is a very familiar face around here, and we're very happy to welcome you here tonight.
Thank you, Robin, for the intro, and thank you to the Gateway Tenant Association for all the work that you have done. I know I've met some of you at the little block party that we had a few months ago, or I probably met you at your door, but it's great to be here for a few minutes to let you know what we've been up to, not just as a city government, but what we've been doing in the community here. As many of you know, we're living through crazy times, and I'm not just talking about what's happening in DC, but sometimes on the other side of City Hall, it feels like the things that are coming out of that side are equally as bad. But in the city council, we've been fighting back. We've been making sure that our libraries are funded, our schools are funded, making sure that our city continues to work through these attacks that we're getting every single way. But we're in the middle of the budget process, right? I think I'm getting, someone is sending text messages or, sorry. Yeah, we're in the middle of the budget process right now. And, luckily for us, New York City only budget when it comes to federal government investment in our New York City budget is only 7 to 8%. And a lot of that has already been contractual for years. And so when you think about some of the resiliency projects or some of the funding projects, they're here to stay and they're legally sound. And so luckily we're kind of shielded. However, we do have a rainy day fund for things that, the administration at DC can just come and try to threaten us. We do have a substantial rainy day fund to cover some of those gaps. But, locally here, we've been doing a lot. We've been able to fully fund community composting. So that's supporting organizations like NYC Grow, Earth Matters, LES Ecology. We planted over 500 trees in the past 2.5 years. We've been able to make sure that our community is represented, not just during these budget talks, but also on the legislative front. Two of the bills that I'm most proud that I'm working on right now is to protect New York City municipal retirees. As many of you know, throughout the whole country, they've been trying to privatize private healthcare from mostly municipal workers and put them in a Medicare Advantage program, which would be run by Aetna. I introduced legislation to stop that, to make sure that people who worked in our city and were promised a good retirement with health coverage actually get what they were promised. And so we've been working and building a really good coalition. We have over 100,000 retirees that have signed on to a petition to pass this bill. We started off this bill in the fall with only 5 co-sponsors, and now we're up to 15. And we're getting a lot of big union support as well. The UFT are now supportive of protecting retirees to stay in their current plans. And so it's a big fight, but I think it's a symbolic fight, especially when you see on a federal level, the shift of trying to privatize everything, right? Whether it's our Medicaid, Medicare, threatening Social Security. There's fights that we can have in the city that are pretty similar in it. We have to make sure that we stand up to those local threats. Another bill that I'm excited that we just had a hearing on is to make sure that we expand the use of OTC cards. If certain insurance companies offer folks $200 to $300 a month, use it or lose it, it's a way for preventive care to buy fresh groceries or medicine. And most businesses in our city don't take it. 80% of the businesses in my district don't take it. But the problem is if people don't use it, they lose it. And so we introduced legislation to mandate small businesses or every business to accept these OTC cards. And it's been a success. We started with a pilot program in Chinatown in the Lower East Side, just sending letters to businesses, educating them on the OTC card. And now every single business accepts them and promotes that they have them. And I spoke to a small business owner just recently. He said he's been able to make 50% more revenues month to month by accepting these types of cards. And so when we're looking to expand it, it's a great way to support our mom and pop shops and give them a diverse incoming revenue source. A few other things that I'm working on is to ban the use of new synthetic turf fields. Many of you have seen the popularity of turf fields pop up all around our city. I want to ban that. Yeah, and it's not for existing turf fields, it's for new turf fields to use real grass. There's been a lot of studies coming out that there's a lot of deadly and toxic chemicals in these types of plastic, and they don't, and that's on a health front. On an environmental front, you can't recycle either the black little dots that end up in your children's cleats or the plastic grass that or synthetic turf that that's there. And so we've been organizing with a lot of environmental groups to help push that forward. It's still early on, but that's something that I look forward to passing in the next year or so. I'm happy to go on. There's a whole bunch of list of funding things that we've done locally, whether it's making sure our kids have after school programs, investing in some of our schools like PS 89, Stuyvesant. But I'm happy to take questions because I know people are worried about what's happening in city government.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Councilmember Marte?
Fern.
Yes, hi. There is a provision in New York City law that allows senior citizens to request that their rent increases be frozen.
Yeah.
And there's an income cap it's about $40,000, I think. There was supposed to be an effort to try and increase that cap. And I'd just like to know if there's any update on that.
Yeah, so it's something we've been working on fairly strongly for the past 3 years. I actually passed a bill in the city council that expanded screen injury, that's the name of the program, into Gateway and IPN in Tribeca and every former Mitchell-Lama program citywide. And now we're making sure that we can raise the threshold. Gail Brewer has a resolution in the city council, which I'm a co-sponsor on. And I think we're getting a lot of traction, at least on a city level. It's the state that can determine the threshold amount. And what we're doing in a city level is putting pressure on them to make sure that they can expand it this budget cycle. And we're still waiting for the state budget to be finalized. Typically, it's done on April 1st, but they're delayed by a week and a half. So hopefully it makes it into that state budget and we can get that increase.
Thank you.
Victoria, you were next.
Hi, council member. Thank you so much for being with us. Just wondering if you could speak for a moment to the affordability and the quasi-rent stabilization here. I know it's not your jurisdiction exactly, but I know we've spoken with you about it.
Yeah, and I want to thank the Tenant Association for coming to our office really early about this issue. It's something that, you know, for many of us, it's whether you get to live in this community or not, right? And so I'm fully supportive of not only fighting to expand the quasi affordability in Gateway, but expanding it to every single apartment. I think there's a lot of clever ways that the tenant association are thinking about pursuing this, and I want to be right there to help you, whether it's helping to get the transparency of how much the rent rolls are and what's the yearly tracking of them from the authority board or from the frat. But I'm ready for this fight. You know, I've taken on a lot of developers in Lower Manhattan, and we have been successful. And I'm ready to take on LaFrat. And I think with the right coalition and making sure that all our electeds are on the same page, we can be successful.
Before Larry, before you go, we had one question in the chat, which was about the grocery stores in Battery Park City. Just, I think, generally, is there anything we can do about getting better grocery stores? I think many people have raised in the past that all we really have is Christetti's.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit trickier, but I don't know if Raju said the announcement that there's going to be a green market, a food market that's coming to Battery Park City. And so hopefully that helps with the quality of the food that is available in the community. But I'm happy to talk to Raju to figure out what other ways we can incentivize grocery stores to come to Battery Park City.
Thank you. Chris, thank you. Larry?
Being here. Has there been any consideration on the part of the city council to extend rent stabilization to all people over a certain age, all seniors over a certain age, as opposed to based upon income or based upon longevity, how long they've lived in a certain complex? Because to me, that seems to be unreasonable. I think you reach a certain age and you have an expectation that you're living on a relatively fixed income. And again, nobody's poor who lives in Gateway. I mean, you can't. But the idea of having to look at your lease and thinking, how much is it going to go up this year, as opposed to having some sort of peace of mind of saying, okay, we've reached this age, we expect a fixed increase each year. That's just, I'm just throwing that out for something for you to consider, or even the city to consider across the board. Rent stabilization for all over a certain age, all over the city, not just in Gateway, but in every borough of the city.
Yeah, I fully
Rent
support that.
stability.
I think, first of all, a lot of that is set on the state level. And so our job is to make sure that we advocate for the state to pass something along those lines. But I've been a strong advocate of rent freezes. I go to the rent guideline boards, which, help regulates 1 million rent stabilized apartments in New York City. And I think every rent stabilized apartment should be under that board, right? And not decided between, every 10 years, a negotiation between the developer and the community. I think there should be an independent board where a lot of the residents have a seat on that board to advocate for rent freezes or really minimal increases. And so, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming, council member. It's always a pleasure to see you. And I'm sure we'll see you around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Thanks so
See you
much.
guys around.
Take care.
Take care.
Next, I'm happy to introduce the chairman and CEO of Battery Park City Authority, Raju Mann. Some of you may have already met him. Raju has been in his role for nearly 2 years. He has an extensive background as an urban planner in the private sector. He worked at the city council in the land use division, and he chose to come to Battery Park City. I hope that Councilmember Marte didn't, steal your show with the green market, but we're looking forward to hearing about what's going on in Battery Park City, including the green market. So welcome.
Great. Hi, Robin. Hi, Gateway Tenants Plaza Association. Great to be with you guys. Yeah, there's a few things I wanted to touch on, but first I just wanted to thank you for the warm welcome over the last year. I've been in the job for just about 1.5 years, and it's been great to meet a lot of you It was great to work with Rosalie and team on the block party last fall. It was a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing it again this year. And it's just great to have a strong tenants association in the neighborhood advocating for your neighbors. It's really important, I think, in building a strong sense of community. So appreciate that and really looking forward to working with you on anything and everything. So a few things I wanted to touch on just quickly, and then happy to take some questions. We've got a busy summer of programming, all of it free, scheduled. You'll get your summer programming guide in your mailboxes in the next couple of weeks. So please look out for that, and please join us at the concerts and the Tai Chis and the yogas and meditation and the book clubs that we all pull together. Again, that's all totally free. So look forward to seeing you in the neighborhood in that. Also really excited that this summer, fingers crossed, August of 2025, we will be reopening Wagner Park. We are still kind of grinding through the last phase of construction. And so as we all know who've done construction projects, it's not done until it's done. But we're really excited to welcome the community back to Wagner. We've got some fun programs. So stay tuned for more information there, again, in your inboxes. Excited to celebrate the return of the park. And as Councilmember Marte mentioned, we have been working with our elected officials to bring back a green market to Battery Park City. My understanding has been over a decade, since 2011, since we've had a farmer's market in the neighborhood. So starting this Mother's Day, May 11th, running Sundays through November, we'll have a farmer's market just adjacent to the Irish Hunger Memorial. So we're gonna do some music there too. So hopefully it'll be a really wonderful event every Sunday for the neighborhood to get together and bump into neighbors and get some great produce. The other item I want to mention, just I think a few folks have asked me to speak about the security presence through our parks and public spaces. As many of you know, we have private security that complements NYPD. It's Allied Universal. We issued a solicitation last year, an RFP, because their contract was expiring. Over 10 firms submitted proposals. We ended up selecting Allied again as being the most qualified. They're also doing work in Lower Manhattan for the Downtown Alliance. But we are also in the process of reevaluating, what are the issues we need to be mindful of moving forward. So they're doing an assessment of the neighborhood before we start up this next phase of the contract to really understand what are the core issues and concerns. And so we're going to have them reach out to a bunch of stakeholders in the neighborhood to get feedback around what are the public safety issues that are really prominent in people's mind. And so we look forward to them having a chance to talk with the Gateway tenants on that. And then, the thing that I can't not mention is the upcoming resiliency work. So as I mentioned, Wagner Park, we're hoping to reopen it this summer. We'll have some fun doing that. And then we're going to turn our attention pretty quickly to the northern stretch, which is about 1.4 miles of coastal flood protection. It's part of, as we all know, the city's efforts, and maybe Jeff spoke about this already, to protect Lower Manhattan from sea level rise and storm surge. It really is, I know you've heard this many, many times, but it's essential to the future of our neighborhood and the future of Lower Manhattan. So we are, I think, meeting again with the Gateway Tenants Association in late May, or we hope to schedule a meeting in late May to talk more about construction schedules and timelines. I'm acutely conscious that we have to do everything we possibly can to manage the construction impacts in the neighborhood, noise, air quality, traffic in particular. And so we are, committed to really pursuing everything best in class on all those fronts to make sure it's as livable a neighborhood during construction as it can possibly be. And we're also looking at public space improvements that are not the waterfront during the construction, so the rest of the neighborhood sees meaningful improvements. And we've been, discussing that with Community Board 1 and many other stakeholders along the way. And then, just finally on QRS, I know that's come up a couple of times already. As you all know, the agreement was last extended in 2020. That required the LAFRAC organization and HUD, Housing and Urban Development, as the mortgagee on the property to reach terms on the QRS. So we're 5 years into that. And as everybody knows on the call, expires in 2030. So we are, I think, going to be focused on that in short order. requires the cooperation of other parties, so I don't have that much more to say, but we understand a pretty critical issue for the neighborhood and obviously for the gateway tenants. But again, just grateful to be here. Grateful for all of you who've had a chance to work with. Looking forward to seeing you in the neighborhood. Don't hesitate if you see me riding my bike or walking the waterfront to stop me and say hi and bug me with questions. Always eager to kind of understand what's on your minds. So appreciate the time. Thanks, Robin.
Before we go to questions for Raju, go ahead, Rosalie. Sorry.
I'm going to tell Robin she was muted. Go ahead, Anna. What did you
I'm
want to say?
sorry.
You're muted again. Anyway, Anna, what were you going to say?
You're unmuted, Robin. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. And if you'll take a few questions, that would be great. I
Absolutely.
saw a few hands raised before.
Robin, sorry, Raju. I just wanted to ask real quick. We had a request if we could pause for questions for Raju to introduce Dan
Oh,
from a timing perspective.
if Raju has the time
Absolutely.
and that would be great.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm happy to welcome Dan Goldman, who I'm sure is in the midst of many, many things going on in Washington. Dan was elected in 2022 and was recently reelected to serve his second term as Congress member for the 10th Congressional District. Dan, now a Battery Park City resident, which we're very happy about, came to his position after serving 10 years as a U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. He also was lead counsel on the first Trump impeachment trial and now serves on the House Judiciary Committee and the Homeland Security Committee. He's also a member of numerous caucuses and task forces, including the Dad's Caucus. So with that, I'd like to welcome Congressman Dan Goldman.
Thank you, Robin. Thanks so much for the kind introduction, and Rosalie, Jeff. I could spend my time just asking Raju questions because I've got plenty myself, but I will focus a little bit on what's going on in DC and in the neighborhood, at least from my perspective in Congress. Obviously, we are dealing with a steady stream of funding cuts, program cuts, trying to both anticipate what is coming and react accordingly. It's none of it is good. None of it is done with any degree of real analysis or strategy. I think I and my colleagues would really like to make government work better, but putting a word in an algorithm and then canceling a program because the word is in that title is not a way of rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. Sorry. I'm off mute now. Okay. And so we're focused on that, the cancellation of the BRIC program under FEMA, which of course was created in the first Trump administration, has resulted in the potential loss of about $42 million for the Seaport Coastal Resiliency Project, mostly FIDI and South Street Seaport, because Battery Park is sort of under a separate arrangement. I don't think will be affected, although Raju will correct me if I'm wrong. But it's bad nonetheless, and the rationale, of course, is that FEMA said that this program is more concerned with political agendas than helping Americans affected by natural disasters. Obviously, whoever said that did not live through Superstorm Sandy, And it's quite frustrating that we're getting so much misinformation. There's a lot going on in Washington that we are really pushing back on. And I think what I would say right now is there's sort of two tracks of what I'm focused on, I'll say. The first is the potential cuts to Medicaid, to Social Security, to SNAP, what the Republicans are planning to do in order to pave the way for continuation of tax cuts for, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, et cetera, is really troubling. We don't have subpoena power. We're in the minority and we cannot put legislation on the floor. But we have our views, our voices, I should say, and we have people like you who do not like what this administration is doing as it relates to funding and government programs that are essential for so many Americans. And the message is getting out. It is starting to break through that this is unacceptable. And the way our system works is that the people speak, and they speak, in many ways during the year until an election when they speak with their vote. But the anticipation of that vote drives a lot of politicians. And given the slim majority in the House for the Republicans, putting a lot of pressure on vulnerable Republicans, purple district Republicans, to do the right thing by their constituents is proving so far to be making some headway. And I'm optimistic that we will be able to avert the worst of the legislative possibilities through that. The other issue that I'm certainly very conscious of, just given my background, is the increasing and methodical attacks on democracy and the rule of law. I think what we're seeing is an increasing boldness by the administration to punish universities, to punish law firms, to go after with criminal investigations people who speak out against the president, and to go after the courts, which is really our last line of defense. And so for a lot of people, it's not as tangible and daily as some of the other issues, but if it goes over the cliff, it will far outweigh a lot of these daily issues. And so we have to be cognizant of it, and we have to push back. And I'm spending, a good amount of my time trying to do that. So, that's a brief update. I'm happy to take a couple questions. I know there's a lot going on and a lot on everyone's mind. Excited, Raju, to hear that Wagner Park is finishing up and the farmers market is coming into the neighborhood. I look forward to that. And I don't want to take away from Raju's questions, but if there are a couple, I am still en route to my next meeting, so I have a little time.
Thank you so much. I see that our co-president has a question.
Sure. I just wanted to confirm, it's my understanding that the federal government has cut bricks or the Building Resilience Infrastructure and Communities grants. And it's my understanding that, a lot of the projects that New York City is doing to ensure sustainability over time is really under attack. And I was wondering if you had any additional information about that. And I'm also curious, I don't know if Raj can answer this, like how that would affect the projects that are planned for Battery Park City, if they affect them at all.
Yes. Well, let me just say, you won't be surprised to hear that we don't get a lot of information from the administration, and we certainly don't get a lot of that information. Not all of it is accurate. I don't know whether the funding has actually been cut. It goes generally through the state. I know what they had designated that is in my district is the Fidei South Street Seaport. I don't believe the Battery Park is affected, and I don't think there's anything else in sort of lower Manhattan that is currently affected. There are a lot of impacts on NYCHA buildings in northern Manhattan and the Bronx, and it's generally very, very troubling and problematic given our resiliency needs. And so some of this, there will be lawsuits, if there are not already, about all of this stuff, because it is illegal under both the statute and legislation, as well as how the Supreme Court has interpreted the Constitution, to say that Congress has the power of the purse, not the president, that he is not permitted to just cut designated funds that were included in legislation. So there's a lot of litigation going on, as I'm sure, aware of. I think there are over 130 lawsuits already. And so that's an important way of doing it. And then to the extent that any of this comes before Congress, you can be sure that we will be pushing very hard on that slim majority. So, we're actually setting up sort of a task force with city, state, and federal officials to prepare for the eventuality that FEMA money is cut significantly, and try to figure out a plan for going forward. But it's going to take some creativity and ingenuity. And I guess I'll turn it over to Raju just to confirm that none of the Battery Park city work is going to be affected.
Yeah, that's right, Congressmember. Yeah, the funding stream is subject to city OMB approval. We've had ongoing conversations with them about that have been productive. There's a limited amount of federal permitting through the Army Corps for some in-water construction work, which has been, I'd say, more routine at the administrative level. So I think we're feeling pretty optimistic that the Trump administration's position on this issue writ large doesn't affect the Battery Park City projects.
Okay, anything else? Oh, Victoria has a question for you, Dan.
So one of so the Gateway Plaza or Gateway Gateway, sorry, I've been here too long. Gateway is has a QRS agreement, so a quasi rent stabilization agreement, and which expires in 2030. And we have spoken with our state elected officials, our city council, and our borough president, and they all support. We have been asking not only for an extension, which we hope we can achieve in 2030, but an expansion of it to cover Gateway, as Gateway was, originally 100% affordable or rent stabilized, sorry, 100% rent stabilized. And we think that it's something well worth fighting for. Certainly have, and actually I know your members of your team have been to our meetings and really appreciate that. So we'd love to know if we can have your support for this goal, and any way that you'd be able to help us to get there.
Absolutely. You have my full support. I'm cognizant of the issue. 2030, as we all know, will come very soon before we know it. And displacement is a major issue, at least for me generally, but throughout the city. And it's a challenge, as we are in a housing crisis, to ensure that whatever ways that we can address the housing crisis do not displace people from their homes where they have been for many years. And I am fully committed. We've been in touch with State Senator Kavanaugh regularly about this, and thankfully he's the chair of the Housing Committee, so he understands these issues very well. And we are paying close attention to it, and I am very supportive of making sure that it remains QRS.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I think with that, I know that you have other obligations and we're very.
Perfect timing, Robin. Perfect
Yeah, oh,
timing.
thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you around the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Good to see you.
And Raju, thank you for standing by. There are a number of questions that have been posed, and Anna, do you want to? I know some of them are in the chat.
Yeah, so I'll just combine a couple here. It's going back to the resiliency project, and I just remind everyone in case you joined late, there's a bigger meeting about the resiliency project later this month. But Raju, if you can answer while you're here, will there be any changes to rents as a result of the construction from like a BPCA standpoint, I guess? I know you don't speak for LaFrac, but that's the first question.
So obviously we've got leases in place from a ground rent standpoint. So, that is how the ground rent for buildings determined, which I should note is a pretty small percentage of the overall housing cost for renters or condo or co-op owners. I think we have not had any conversations about any rent abatements or credits as part of the resiliency project. I think for any significant restructuring of our ground leases, as many of you know, we need city and in some cases controller approval. And the ground rent revenue stream does two things. One, it primarily supports affordable housing in New York City as a whole. So as folks may be aware of, we announced last summer a new deal with the city and the state that the ground rent proceeds would be going to affordable housing in New York City. Frankly, helping neighborhoods who are in really significant distress. And so any reduction in ground rent has implications for that affordable housing fund. So it's a complicated discussion with the city and the state. We are, I think, very, very sensitive to the fact that the resiliency project will have an impact in the neighborhood during construction. And I think we're going to do everything we can to possibly mitigate that impact, again, from particularly a noise, air quality, traffic standpoint. But we think long term, the construction impact is far, far, far less severe than the impact the neighborhood will experience in the event of a storm surge and sea level rise. So it is, I think, depending on your time horizon, if we think about this neighborhood in the next 10, 20, 30 years, this is really critical for the neighborhood's survival. And so I think it's important to think about it in terms of those time horizons.
Okay, thank you. And you've mentioned a couple of times like the air quality and the noise. We got a couple of questions about noise. I guess, can you maybe elaborate on how you guys will be managing that?
Sure. So obviously we're looking at all the projects that are happening citywide to understand what they're doing from a mitigation standpoint. For folks who've wandered up or wandered down to the end of South End Avenue and seen this sort of structure that's down there, as part of this little pile testing program that we're doing to understand how deep we need to go to hit bedrock. And that's adjacent to a couple of daycares. So we constructed scaffolding around it that had noise dampening blankets. And I went there during the pile testing work, and I was actually pleasantly surprised at the noise, the low level of noise coming from it. And so I think we are looking at electrical equipment where possible, which also has some noise benefits rather than gas-powered machinery. And obviously going to be trying to keep all construction to the hours during the day. So we will have limited nighttime construction. The place where we'll have some nighttime construction is on the west side, West Side Highway or, Route 9A, where we have to do overnight work just because the highway needs to function during the day. But thankfully that's further from the residents. But, I'll be walking the same streets you all will be walking. And so I will be, I think, pretty acutely attuned with our design build team to making sure that we are being responsive to complaints that come up through a construction coordinator and practicing some preventative medicine of putting in place measures that we think will do a good job of managing the quality of life issues.
That's all I had from the chat.
Any other questions for Raju before he? Okay, thank you so much. I think, yeah, you've heard from the questions and just generally that there are a lot of concerns about the resiliency work that's going to happen in our backyard. And we're grateful for the upcoming conversation that we'll be co-hosting with you at the end of May.
Yep.
And with that, thank you so much for joining
And
us.
and I would just say, don't hesitate to reach out, obviously. You know, it's important on an ongoing basis. We hear from you if there are concerns. And May 11th, Mother's Day, Sunday morning, farmer's market. Come out if you can and grab some healthy food. We look forward to seeing you there.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin.
And I just want to remind everybody, the date is May 29th, so please watch out for a newsletter announcing that from us, May 29th. Let's continue with the updates. Jeff, you had covered resiliency, and I think Victoria, we're going on to good cause.
Yes. So, thank you, Rosalie, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the New York State good cause eviction law and how it might apply to some of our market rate tenants. I want to make, first of all, I just have to clarify that this is informational. It is not legal advice. Please do speak to a lawyer if you have any concerns about any of this. But for those of you who are not familiar with good cause eviction, it is a New York State law that was passed last year. It went into effect on May 20th of 2024, and it applies to non-luxury apartments. And luxury is defined by any rent that is above a certain level, which the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal publishes each year. So that's a DHCR for those of us who are used to government chat. So for this year, those rates in New York City are, so this would be the cutoff line, anything above this is considered luxury. So for a studio, that is $5,471. For a 1-bedroom, that's $5,709. For a 2-bedroom, that's $6,321. For a 3-bedroom, that's $7,877. For a 4-bedroom, that's $8,499. You can find these on the DHCR website, and we do have something on our website, but it's not updated to this year's numbers that can run this down. But I did take a quick look, and it seems that I looked at the Gateway rental page, or the page where they're posting the markets, available apartments, and it seems to me that right now most 2-bedrooms will come above this, meaning that they would not be protected by the so-called good cause eviction. So if your rent is below these thresholds, though, then you are covered by good cause eviction, and your rent increases cannot be unreasonable. And the law defines unreasonable as 5% plus inflation, also known as the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, and in any case, no more than 10%. So this year, that means that they cannot raise your rent more than 9.79%. So that's 5% plus inflation, which is currently at 3.79. Gateway is required to provide notice of whether or not good cause eviction applies in a new lease or in a lease renewal. So this notice is generally in the form of a rider to your lease or your lease renewal. And if an apartment is exempt from good cause eviction, then Gateway must state the reason why it's exempt, and presumably it's because the rent is considered luxury. As I mentioned, we do have a brief description on our website. Please do go there. If you have any questions, you can reach out to our local state officials and speak, or again, speak to a landlord tenant lawyer. But I'm happy to answer any questions that I can, but again, can't give any legal advice. But that is it for me.
All right, great. And thank you, Victoria. Chris, you want to talk about electric bills?
Sure. We've gotten a few questions, both in the past and tonight, about sort of the electric/heat costs that we saw this winter. Especially for January, it was high for everyone. I think the short way to say it is that the electric bill really sucked this winter. For me personally, I paid $300 in January for a 1 bedroom, which frankly can be a lot, especially for folks on a fixed income. So I spent some time looking into this. I made a survey that had about 50 respondents. My takeaway here is that yes, the heat cost sucked, but it was frankly mostly appears to be driven by the fact that it was the coldest winter we've had since at least 2018. And the rate hikes that Con Ed has put in place, which, as someone went over earlier, they are trying to raise it even more. Our PTAC heat units do become inefficient at cold temperatures, but it's unfortunately common for many people with electric heat across the city. And we've seen these complaints citywide, not just within Gateway. I will post a link to the survey results in the chat here. If your bill was an outlier, like if you see everybody in the 2 bedroom was paying X amount and you were paying $50,000 or something like that, definitely talk to management, obviously. Like, see if a handyman can come and look. If it's literally 50 grand, that's a whole another issue. But make sure to keep the filters clean. It does seem to make a really big difference. You can also take the entire front of the PTAC unit off. If you don't know how to do that, the handyman can help you. It can get really gross in there, and it can definitely help. So I will post a link in chat to the spreadsheet that has the results. If you're like, oh wow, I paid way more than everybody else, like definitely look into that. And also feel free to like message me personally. It's something I've spent like a good amount of time trying to dig into, trying to find evidence that it wasn't just that something was going wrong, specific to Gateway. I can't find evidence of that yet. So feel free to reach out if you still have concerns about it.
Thank you, Chris. We're going to move on. I don't believe Brian Kavanaugh's here yet, correct? Anna or anybody? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move on to our elections, and Jeff Galloway.
All right. So the procedure this year will be the same as it was last year, more or less, but let me go over it again. There are 15 positions available on the board of GTA. If I'm counting correctly and have the most updated information, right now we have only 14 candidates. Those candidates being the 13 existing board members who are running for reelection, plus one additional Gateway resident who has thrown his hat into the ring. We're not done with nominations yet, so there is still time for others to nominate themselves. The criteria for serving on the board and running for on the board is very simple. You need to be a paid up member. If you're not paid up yet, you would have until 5 p.m. this coming Friday to be paid up. Let me jump ahead and then jump back to the nominations. And jumping ahead, assuming we have more than 15 candidates running, the way the election itself would proceed would be, once again, the same as last year. It will be by electronic ballot. There's a service called Election Buddy. We used it last year. We've used it actually a couple of times. And so there's no election tonight. The ballots would be sent out next Monday and would need to be returned by Thursday. So that's why you have until Friday at 5 p.m. to pay your dues, to both be able to vote as well as to be able to run. However, if you want to run, you've got to speak up tonight. Even if you're not paid up, you would have until Friday to pay your dues. But if you're interested in running, you can nominate yourself tonight. You'd have an opportunity to submit a short bio that would be attached as part of the ballot. That also would need to be submitted by 5 p.m. on Friday, so we have time to get it into the ballot. So let me just pause for a moment to see if there are others interested in nominating themselves or nominating somebody else. The caveat is if you're nominating somebody else, they have to be somebody who is here, who in this meeting, so that they have the opportunity to say yes or no to, acceptance of the nomination. So I can't see the chat, so you can put a nomination into the chat, or you can raise your hand. And let me just pause to see if anyone is interested in doing so. Anna, anything in the chat?
Nothing in the chat right now. I just want to say I'll do a short plug myself because I've only been on the board for 1 year, and several of these guys on the board talked me into it, and I think it was great that they did because I've learned so much about Gateway and all the issues that we face. And I won't take credit for this, but Stacy has raised her hand in the chat. Stacy
Sonnenberg.
Thank you. I didn't want to mispronounce it.
Okay. Let me, I guess we have the name in the chat so that we have the full first and last name. Okay, so now we're up to 15. If we're going to have an election, we need 16. Otherwise, Stacy, be careful for what you wish for, because you will be automatically become a board member if there are only 15 candidates, subject to making sure you pay your dues by Friday. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Mary Mooney.
Okay.
I am a resident of the 600 building. I've been here for over 30 years, and I would be happy to serve on the board at your pleasure or provide any support that you wish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
You're
So
welcome.
now we have 16. We have a real election coming up. Do we have any others? Okay, so here's what we have. We now have 16 candidates for 15 positions. And when you get your ballot, it will have all 16 on it, and it will say vote for 15, or vote for up to 15. And the top 15 vote getters will serve on the board. And to clarify, or just reiterate who is running, it's the 13 existing board members plus 3 new candidates. And those new candidates are, I believe it is Mike Liebman. Do I have the name correct?
Mark
Liebman. Okay. Oh, I see your picture there. Okay. We have Mark Liebman. We have Stacy. I didn't get her last name.
Stacy Sonnenberg.
Stacy Sonnenberg. Now I see Stacy. And Mary Mooney. And I know, Mark, you've already submitted your bio. And so Stacy and Mary, if you would submit your bios, you simply need to send it to the Gateway email address. We're talking about short, a handful of sentences kind of thing. And these bios will then appear. Those of you who voted last year may remember this. When the election buddy ballot comes out by email, there will be a little indicator next to everybody's name that's a candidate that if you click on it, it expands to include the bio. The voting process, so once again, you need to be paid up to vote and paid up to be a candidate by 5 p.m. on Friday. You can pay your dues. And by the way, by paid up, this is for 2025. So if you haven't paid dues since January 1, 2025, you're going to need to pay them. And don't be embarrassed if you haven't already. I only paid mine last week. So you go to the Gateway website. I believe there is a button on the right-hand side that says Join GTA, and it will take you to a payment portal right then and
You're
there.
breaking up, Jeff.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, sorry. Um, so go to the portal, click to pay up by 5 p.m. on Friday, and Mary and Stacy, get us your bios by 5 p.m. on Friday. And then what's going to happen is that the ballot will go out. It may look like it's from electionbuddy.com. I'll try to set it up so it says it's coming from Gateway Tenants, but so don't throw it in the junk mail if you see something from Election Buddy. The ballots will go out by email on this coming Monday. It will indicate in the ballot email when it's due by, but I'm telling you now that that will be on Thursday. And then we will announce the results on Friday or Saturday after the ballots, after the voting has closed. And it will go out to the email that you have in your Gateway Tenants Association records. And I'm not the keeper of those records, but as I understand it, we do have an email of everyone who is a paid up member. And I believe if you pay through the portal, you will automatically put in an email address when you pay.
Great.
So questions on the voting? I don't see any.
One
Okay.
question. I just want to wish Stacy the best of luck and no hard feelings. And I'm here to support no matter what. Been here a long time. I love living here. And thank you, particularly this board, Rosalie, Jeff, Howard, so many others, Robin, I mean, Carlene, you've been great. And I'm happy to try to fill those shoes. I don't think I can, but I'm here to try. So
Thank you, Mary.
thank you, Jeff.
Okay, Jeff, that concludes that part?
Yep.
Good. We do have another guest coming eventually, but we want to get to our question and answer. Anna, are there questions in the chat, or you could also raise hands, and Jeff and Victoria and Robin will take the lead there. And if any of us, any of the board members have anything to add, please do.
There are a couple of questions in the chat. I'm just scrolling to make sure I haven't missed any. So the next one is going back to the Battery Park Resiliency Project. Jeff, if you maybe are best positioned to take this one. The 39-month time frame for work on the area in the back of the 400 building. Can you remind us, when does that start, or do you know exactly when does it start?
We will get an update on May 29th. The schedule as of last fall, which is the most recently set schedule that I have, says that that work is supposed to start in the fourth quarter of 2025. It's no more definite than that. If I were to guess, I would think it's more likely that it will be first quarter of 2026 rather than the fourth quarter of 2025, but in roughly that time frame, subject to whatever is updated on May 29th.
Thank you. Another chat question that came up is about the music at the pool. I know this has come up in the past, so I don't know, Rosalie or Shannon or Robin, who's best to take this one, but just talking about, is there anything we can do about the music? Have we discussed it with management?
We did. Go ahead, Rosalie.
No, Shannon, go ahead. I just say we have discussed that with management. We did get that once before. And they weren't getting Shannon, what did they, if you could remember?
Well, they seem to, they said that it's the workers at the pool where they turn it up, and it's just a matter of asking them to turn it down and to let them know that, they should turn it down. And there were some instances where they forgot to turn it off at night. And then that was, maintenance can go and turn it off. So it's something that can be handled, but it's a matter of informing, the lifeguards that that's an issue and that they have to pay close attention to it. That is what they told us during our call we had about it. I think it was in the fall. that it really is like an individual lifeguard issue.
Yeah, and also, you all should know that we do have periodic meetings with LEFRAC, and we bring any of the issues that will come up here or things that we hear in the meantime. And we have an upcoming meeting, I don't know, sometime late May. So if you have any questions that you didn't get to here, please email them to us, and we will add them to our agenda when we're speaking to the LEFRAC team. But whoever asked that question, is that, are you talking about, is that what you're talking about? Does that address your question?
It was in the chat, so I'll wait and see if
Oh,
they
okay.
come back. But I just wanted to add one other thing. I think, like I said, having only been on the board 1 year, I think one of the big things I learned from the meetings with management is a lot of the questions we see over and over again, their response is email us. Like, we didn't know that the pool music was left on until somebody emailed us. And as soon as you emailed us, we'll go down. I think we all know it doesn't always happen, you know, like that every time. But same as the elevator questions, management told us in our meetings with them that they've put in very strict restrictions on when maintenance guys are allowed to take the trash out and things like that. And if you, they recommended to the Tenants Association that if you have issues with people taking up the elevators for maintenance or for trash during peak hours, that we should absolutely let them know so that they can resolve the issue. So I think with the pool music, with the elevators, a big answer is to email management when the issue is happening and say, this is happening. Can you please fix it?
And the email address is just the regular maintenance@gatewayny.com or whatever it is that you see in their periodic emails. And Greg and Fred have said that one or both of them monitor that email address regularly. So they say it won't get lost. According to them, it won't get lost in the mail, so to speak. They do check these emails.
Any other?
I wanted to add one quick thing. Feel free, if you're sending a letter to management, to copy the tenant association also.
Yes.
So we're aware of ongoing problem. And we get a lot of requests anyway, but if you're going to management and would like to let us know, we're happy to know.
Yeah.
I
Go
have
ahead,
a question.
Janice.
Yeah, so I've been raising this for 30 years and never accomplishing it. Is there any way that we can convince management to post the addresses of our buildings on South End Avenue so that a taxi driver, a person coming to visit, somebody who's looking for our address can see, for example, 355 South End Avenue when they're out on South End Avenue? It would be such a simple thing for them to put the numbers of the buildings on that overpass between the buildings. To me, it seems simple. But I take taxis a lot because I am somewhat disabled. And I always have a problem getting the taxi driver to come into our building. They sit and wait for me out by the Chase Bank because they think that may be 355 South End Avenue. So I implore you, if there's some way that we can do that, it would be so helpful. I'm not the only one, I'm sure, that has had this difficulty.
Janice, have you written to management about, you've written to, I assume, to management about
I've
this?
spoken to them. I've not written, but I've spoken to them multiple times. I've lived here 33 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We can raise it with management at our next meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank
I'm not
you.
saying we'll win that one, but we'll certainly, we'll bring it up and we'll advocate for it, certainly.
Thank you.
Just going back to the chat, Stacy has a question.
Sorry, I put it in the chat, but I think the chat only goes to certain people. I live in one of the shorter towers, and I know that there's 2 other short towers, and we're all about to have our elevators modernized. 10 years ago or so, the time starts to shift when you've lived here a long time. We had our elevator out of commission for 1 month, and it was a very hard month, but I was 10 years younger. My mother was able to go up and downstairs. Now they're saying it's going to be 6 weeks for the towers. The timeline keeps shifting for the short buildings. For those who live in the tall buildings, the short buildings only have one elevator. And so when it's out, there's stairs. So suddenly, you end up in a 6th-floor walk up or 7th-floor walk up instead of, an elevator luxury building. So I just wanted to know what the Tenants Association's been doing on this topic, and if you all are getting greater clarity on it. And I'm a little bit terrified because the tall towers have said that the elevator work has been quite challenging, as a nice way of saying it, but I understand that it's taken much longer. The timelines have crept longer than originally promised.
If I can respond, Stacy, I've been here since 1991, and many on this call have preceded me, and the elevators have always been an issue. It has never ceased, and I see Howard going.
No, Mary, I've lived in 2 buildings here for 25 years. I'm very familiar with the elevator issues, but this is a situation where my mother is, she
I understand.
She uses a walker on good days. She uses a wheelchair on bad days. This is not a small matter anymore. And
I understand that. And
yeah. I'm
not
asking
sure.
the GPTA. I appreciate, Mary, your response, but I'm really asking the Tenants Association because I have been frustrated that I haven't gotten more communication on this topic. And I think many others are frustrated as well. And I sent multiple emails to Gateway that took months to get responses. And I would get responses that often were, we'll talk to you at the end of January, or we'll talk to you at the end of March. Then they send me a big long form that I have to go to my mother's doctor to have filled out in order to get an accommodation, which I've had to do before, so I'll do it again. But it's just the lack of any, like, what kind of accommodation is going to be made? How do you accommodate somebody in a wheelchair going up and down 6 flights? I'm looking for who's advocating on behalf of tenants from the Gateway Plaza Tenants Association.
So Stacey, they have not answered any of those emails, right? Because it seems like they're still figuring it out. But in our next meeting, we'll absolutely try to get clarity for you. I can't imagine what that's going to be like for you or what the solution may be. I have no idea. I'm not quite sure that they know what how they're handling it. The only thing I read in the emails that go out is that they've been contacting, and is this true?
Yes,
because so I don't know.
But it's a 6-page form that
Yeah.
you need doctor's note attached, which is fine. That's not a problem to get. I just want to talk to them because I think that most of the people like me in my situation, we're able to work with them and talk to them. And normally I deal with Andrew Chu or I deal with other people in the office, but this has been, the deafening silence has been really extraordinary, and I'm not the only one. So
I'm glad you told us, and I really appreciate it. And it will be a very important topic when we speak to them again. I don't have an answer for you because we haven't been told.
yeah, and they're using a third party for the accommodations, and it's the same form I had to fill out to deal with bathroom modifications. So it's kind of crazy to me that that's phone
By the
calls.
way, one of our board members lives in one of Robin. Where are you? Robin lives in a short building as well. So this is her experience. This will be her experience too. So all I could say is we have no answer for you now, but we will make sure it's a priority when we speak to them. And did they give you any indication when they are starting the small buildings?
Yeah, I can forward along the email. They've sent multiple emails at this point with dates shifting. And I'm in 385. I can't remember all the small building numbers. We're not first, we're in the middle. And so, and I think the first one starts in May.
I think
I don't know if there's
365 is first. Your second, 345, I think, is last, my building.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Um,
sounds right.
I think
Listen,
we're
I
ready
appreciate,
to move on.
yeah.
Yeah, the
Senator,
one thing I would just add, the reason why I put my hat in the ring with the Tenants Association is I feel like this is something that was like a freight train coming. There's been a lot of notification about the elevator modernization and a surprising lack of communication I felt by the Tenants Association on what was going on with it or involvement in it. And frankly, this impacts our daily lives more than a block party. And I care about things like this more than the block party. I really appreciate the analysis Chris did on electrical. I think that's really powerful. But to me, these daily living things are what's important about Gateway Plaza Tenants Association and the reason why I put my name in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
Stacy, I know we have to move on just very, very fast, Stacy. I want to mention that management did assure us or attempted to assure us that they would give lots of special attention to the folks in the short buildings. If that hasn't happened, like that's 1,000% something we're going to bring back up with them. So this is really helpful for us to know just how serious and that you are not feeling like you're communicated with. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Is,
I think
is he
yes,
here?
yes.
Oh, great. Okay.
We've been joined by Senator Brian Kavanaugh. Good timing, Brian. For those of you that don't know him, the senator represents the 27th Senate District in the New York State Senate. Many of you know him personally, and most of you know that he chairs the Senate Housing Committee, which is probably the committee that affects us the most. His focus over the years, and certainly in his current role, has been on affordable housing. He's also been very important in the leading the roles in gun violence prevention and environmental sustainability. Prior to joining the Senate, Brian was in the New York State Assembly, and before that, he worked at the City Council, where I worked and met him. So with that, I'm very happy to welcome Senator Brian Kavanaugh to our meeting.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Robin, and thanks to everybody, the leadership of the Tenants Association. I saw Rosalie and Victoria and Jeff, but it's always a pleasure to be here. I apologize, I'm appearing late this evening. I had another engagement uptown, and I have, unfortunately, to catch a train to Albany tonight still to go vote on a bill to keep the lights of state government on, because we're in a continuing difficult negotiation to get the state budget done, which is due April 1st. But I am happy to be here. Dan Byers, I don't know if he was introduced before, but has been here for the duration of the meeting. He's my Director of Community Affairs and always available to all of you, as am I. So just briefly, we are in the midst of a budget. We are trying to figure out we've done relatively well in terms of the fiscal health of the state in recent years. So we did not go into this year with major sort of fiscal difficulties. We are seeing many signs that the federal government under this administration and with Republican control of Congress is going to create a great many challenges, including fiscal and financial challenges for the state. But so far, there's been some very troubling eliminations of programs and others, but they haven't done much that is a direct impact on our state finances, at least yet. So we're, negotiating to make sure we maximize funding in schools, make very substantial investments in housing in particular, because and I spent a lot of time doing that, as Robin noted. And again, the budget was due April 1st. I'm hoping that there's been some progress recently, and I'm hoping that we're going to wrap it up relatively soon, but it's very hard to predict. We're at a bit of an impasse over a few issues. I'm happy to talk about that if people are interested. Just locally, we are working on, a couple of years ago, we did a bill to make sure that Battery Park City, including Gateway, are treated equally with respect to programs like SCREE and DREE, which frees people's rent in their, if they're income eligible for the program. The income eligibility has been frozen for a long time. So we are trying now. One of the priorities this year is to expand that program so more people at higher incomes can participate. And that's true. We're trying to do that across the entire program, not just for Better Park City and Gateway. We had hearings on rental assistance programs, including that one last month. And we're hoping once the budget gets done to make that a big priority. We also have legislation that I think I saw Tammy here, and I think it is the subject of committee. I think Community Board 1 has been taking this up a resolution, but we are trying to pass legislation along with Charles Fall, your assembly member, to ensure that there is a program that will insulate people of lower and middle incomes from increases in ground rent. It would effectively freeze the proportion of someone's charges that are result from ground rent, and it would affect, in principle, if we do it right, it should affect any resident in Battery Park City, including Gateway, who have a lower, moderate, or middle income. And we're hoping to get that done legislatively. There had been talk of the board. Once we proposed it, I think that the board of the Battery Park City Authority had taken up a version of that, but there have been some changes at the board and among the leadership. And I think it's important that we pursue it legislatively as well at this point. We continue to be worried, concerned about, and trying to do everything we can to address public safety. Crime and sort of disorder in our communities are not they're at levels that are, for historically in New York, relatively low, but we do see disturbing incidents. We're all disturbed, including some very violent incidents. So we continue to work to make sure our subways are safe, to make sure our streets are safe, and we work very closely with our local precincts. And we are also currently negotiating about some changes in some of the laws around that, particularly the discovery laws, which are about prosecutors and defendants exchanging information before trial. We are currently negotiating some changes in that our district attorney, Alvin Bragg, and other district attorneys support. I know it's late. Obviously, I could probably talk about a few other things, but I think maybe I should stop there and see if there are any questions or comments, or are you ready to move on with your evenings? That would be fine too.
I think we'd be happy to take a few questions if you have time before your train.
A little tight, but I could do it. Yes, I could do a few.
I'm going to ask Anna to tell me who has hands raised or chat.
I think so far we have Victoria.
Okay.
Were you able to rejoin?
Yes, thank you. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but
Hi, Victoria.
hi, Senator. How are you?
Good.
So I want to say thank you again for having the meeting regarding the quasi-rent stabilization, and just wanted to ask you, we had all the other elected officials on here this evening, and they all supported the push that the Gateway Tenant Association are pushing, which is to not only extend the quasi-rent stabilization beyond 2030, which is really just around the corner, and as well as expanding it to the entire complex. So wanted to ask for your support and let us know what we can do and let our tenants know what we can do to make that happen.
Yeah, that we had a productive, for those. I mean, we had a conversation with most of the board was there, and representatives of our various elected offices. I think all of us are very committed to working closely with the tenant association on whatever strategy would be fruitful there. It is unfortunately an arrangement between a private, the private property owner of Gateway, of the buildings. And it's been a very tough negotiation in the past. I think we were very supportive of the tenant association position last time around. And I think that the tenant association succeeded in negotiating a good deal under difficult circumstances. But I know it's not what people wanted, especially with respect to the non-covered units. I spend much of my life trying to protect tenants from unfair eviction, from unreasonable rent increases. We did the good cause eviction law last year. I made the rent laws, laws that are worth fighting to be part of. Through the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act in 2019, which I led negotiations on. So I am very supportive of this effort as well. I think we do have it is a strategic question how to get this property owner to the table, particularly in the political environment we're in. And this isn't a partisan meeting, but it's no secret that there are there are some elections that will happen between now and 2030. And so, but again, I'm open to any and all efforts to achieve what you described, Victoria. And as I said at the meeting with the board, I'm happy to work closely with all of you to jointly make decisions about how we can get that done.
Great, thank you.
And anything else?
I think we're about out of time.
Oh, yeah, we are. Okay.
But I'll just reiterate that if you did leave questions in the chat and we didn't get to them, we have a record of all of them, and we'll try to address all of them, if not most of them, in an email and on our website. So keep an eye out.
Great.
And
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for letting me be the closer. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. I'm glad you made it, and safe travels to all.
I'm going to go run to the train. Take care. Thanks.
Good luck. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks,
yeah.
everybody, for coming.
Yeah, we're going to close in a second. Audrey, just tell people about our social media, and then we'll close out.
Hey guys, you can go on our website for this information, but if you want to write it down, we're on Facebook. It's Gateway Plaza Tenants Association, and we're on X. It's at GPTA.
Yeah, follow us, okay? You'll get information there as well as on our website. I think that's it. Thank you all so much. I know it went a little long, but we appreciate your hanging in there. And again, keep in touch with us. If you have a thought, an idea, if you need us, we are there for you. And I want to thank the board for being there every month and many meetings in between for really lending your time and being of service to this community. Thank you, the three candidates who are interested in joining the board. We appreciate your interest in the community because we're all here for the same reason. We want a great Gateway, and we want a community that's nurtured and good for everyone. So thank you all, and we'll see you around Gateway.
Okay.